Welcome to the Overcome Medica Hair Loss Summit. My name is Valerie Fuentes. I'm your host, and today I am with Kellie Scott. I do not have to introduce her. I'm sure some of you know her already. She's been on my summit now a couple of times. And I keep bringing you back because you're just a wealth of knowledge. And last time we touched on something really interesting that for me just opened up a whole new world that I didn't even think about, right? Because when we're dealing with our hair loss, we get wrapped up on what we're going through, right? All the emotional parts and our, the actual hair falling and all this stuff that we don't sit for a minute to think about the things that we're going to talk about today.
Yes.
Which are, where is your hair coming from and where is it going? And what happens behind the scenes, while this beautiful hair is being created.
Yeah.
So after our conversation, I know you read a book and a lot of things has happened since then. So if you can tell us a little bit, like, first off, what made you start questioning yourself about these things?
Okay, I think it was the kind of commentary I'd seen within the hair loss community, especially amongst business owners, about, Brazilian hair versus Chinese or Indian hair versus European hair. And people would say, well, Brazilian hair is not a real thing. Other people would say, well, you might get told it's European hair, but it isn't really. Then you see people selling European wigs for 5,000 Australian dollars, and other people selling European wigs 1,500 Australian dollars. And you're thinking, oh, how can these both be European? And with, it seems too cheap. How do they afford? So I guess I've always had those questions, and the curiosity was just growing more and more. And I was frustrated by the fact that I could never get straight answers. And that's not necessarily on the sellers themselves, because a lot of time they don't really know where their hair is from either. They don't have the information to give you. They're not empowered. We're not empowered as consumers. A lot of people along the line aren't empowered. So by information, that is. So yeah, it was just a growing curiosity of mine.
Yeah, and like you said, it's we're definitely not empowered. That's definitely one thing. I feel like we're afraid of asking those questions. It's almost like we're in denial. I don't know if that resonates with you, but it's like, well, I'd rather not know because I might regret it.
Yeah, 100%. And it's become, for us, myself and a lot of people in the hair loss community, I know you will relate to this. Wearing hair has been such a transformative experience. Like, it's solved all of our hair loss problems, something that was causing us so much pain and anguish. To then maybe learn something negative about that, you are fearful because you don't want to be confronted by that. You don't want to lose this thing that's changed you so much. And I mean, that could be true. People often, when we talk about this, will say things like, oh, well, you don't know where, I don't know, your TV comes from. Like, who's really making a TV? Are people being paid properly? I mean, this is maybe a weird example. I'm pulling it out of my butt here. But, there's a lot of things in life you can start scratching the surface and digging on and finding about the ethics around where it comes from and how it's made and the environmental side, and probably don't want to be confronted by that. I don't want to lose my TV either, for example. Like, that's a pretty big part of my life. So yes, while you can apply this to many things in your life, I think hair for people with hair loss has a significant impact because it has changed you so much. And so yes, we are scared to learn the truth.
Yeah. So where did you start your research?
So, I would read articles if they popped up, which they very rarely do, but like Refinery 29 had done a cool video a while back, and I'd watched that. And then when I was just really doing a deep dive for where can I get some answers, I came across Entanglement by Emma Tarlow, she's an anthropologist in the UK, and she spent 3 years researching and traveling and basically doing all the hard yards that I wish I had the time to do, but sorry, I've got a day job, on this topic. And really no one had gone there before like she has. And I'm just beyond enamored by this woman. I just think it's amazing that she's done this. And she doesn't even have hair loss. She doesn't even wear hair. Like, I'd have to talk to her more about the inspiration for it. I'm not quite sure how she landed in this particular topic. But yeah, so I read the book and I did go in with fear, as you say. I went in worried that I was going to be so shook that I wouldn't be able to wear hair without being a complete hypocrite.
Yeah.
And while there is still some of that, because the hair industry is very flawed, I also came away with a few more positive feelings about it than I expected.
Okay. Please tell me more, because
Sorry, you just froze for a second there. I thought I'd lost you. Yeah, okay. So the positives, I guess, that I came away with, you know, Emma touched on quite a bit. Like she was on the ground. She was going to the source where people's ponytails were being cut, where their comb waste was being collected, which, spoiler alert, if you didn't know already, there's a very high chance that your wig isn't made from a cut ponytail. It's made from hair from brushes that women have been collecting for months and years. And then there's people that are paid to sort through that hair and put it into different qualities and lengths. Like, it's insanely painstaking.
I did not know this.
Yeah, so that's very, very common. But I did ask Emma what would the percentage of comb waste wigs versus, you know, ponytail wigs, which can be called Remy, I guess, because all the hair is in the one direction, whereas comb waste, it's not. And she couldn't really answer, but she said that if something's called standard hair in the industry, and it wouldn't be at the stage we buy the wig, but where they buy the hair, that would likely be comb waste. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. So she was going to like that really ground level and talking to those people. And so many of those people were saying that this is like a financial lifeline for them. Like if they weren't able to sell their comb waste, or if they weren't able to be paid for hours and hours of sorting through comb waste, you know, their livelihoods wouldn't be what they are. And arguably they're not paid what they deserve. But comb waste is actually a really ethical way of sourcing, buying, wearing hair, because it's something that would have just gone in the bin anyway, right?
True.
But yeah, women who sell their ponytails, etc., or whatever hair, like, and not paid properly. So it is so complex. And I mean, that's just at the bottom. And then we're talking about the people that travel to get this hair, which, PS, no wonder we're having a shortage in coronavirus, because no one can travel to collect any hair. Then you've got the factories that make the pieces and sort the hair. Are those people paid properly? And Emma talks about that, you know, most of the factories are in China and the standards are much, much better than they would have been decades ago. So that's semi-reassuring. But then the standards we have in Australia and America versus China might be very different. So it's all about perception, I guess. Then we have temple hair, which comes mostly from temples in India, but also elsewhere around the world. Some people believe that is really ethical because they're sacrificing their hair to their god or for their religion. And if it was to just not be sold or used to make hair, like, where would this hair go? I guess it would be wasted. So I see that as ethical because people donate that hair knowing that it then ends up in the market. But I would say, well, no, those women should be paid. But if they're paid, it defeats the purpose of them sacrificing hair for their religion. So again, complicated depending on your personal views. So I guess what I realized is it's not black and white. It's far from perfect, but it's a good thing this industry exists because it does give people opportunity who might not have it otherwise. What I think is that we can still improve it. We don't have to settle for the fact that it's really flawed. Like, we as consumers can ask more questions and demand more answers and want to improve it. I don't have the answers to how yet. I'm still on that journey and I'm just one person and maybe it will have no impact at all. But I feel like the step one is just empowering people with information, whatever information I can get, because without that, we can't do anything.
Right. And do you know why China specifically, like why this industry developed in China as opposed to a different country?
Do you know what? The answer to that probably is in the book, and I cannot remember to answer that now, but I know that most of the hair on the market is actually Chinese hair. So that's a huge population that's contributing their hair. But there's also that stigma that, exists that things from China are cheap or not good quality. It's ridiculous. However, it exists, whether we like it or not, right or wrong. And so, whatever you're told your hair is, there's a high chance it's actually Chinese hair. And I guess if you want to talk about hair origins a little, let me know, because I won't get ahead of myself.
Yeah, no, let's do it.
Cool. Well, I just think also the problem is, and something I've learned, you have to understand, I'm not like the expert on this. This is all just stuff I'm learning recently as well. So if I say anything that is wrong, people should feel free to reach out and correct me. But you can have really soft, silky, smooth Chinese hair, and you can have really thick, coarse, not as nice Chinese hair. Just like when you look around your own community, everybody doesn't have the exact same hair. So labeling hair by origin, it's impossible to prove that that's where your hair's come from, but also it's stupid, because like even talking about Brazilian hair, like the population there is so multicultural that if it really was coming from there, two completely different kinds of hair or 10 completely different kinds of hair. So this is why I think talking about hair from country of origin is problematic for two reasons. A, you don't know if it's true. B, the hair is so different from person to person. I don't know why we feel like we have to label it by race almost.
So what do you think there should be a grading? Like, what are we trying to classify? Like, are we trying to talk about quality? Like, what's the point of a grading system, I guess is my question. Because I'm very new to this.
A grading system almost is pointless, because I did have this suggestion that, well, why don't we have a grading scale of, 1 to 10, 1 being the finest, softest, fluffiest hair, and 10 being the coarsest, thickest hair. I mean, there'd be so many different categories you can tick the box, because some people might like silky but thick hair because their hair used to be thick, right? And I did speak to one wig maker, Average Jules, on Instagram, and she said, well, I don't think there's any point to changing it because it will still be used for false marketing. Hair that's really 1 or 10, whatever, will be sold as something that it's not. And I understand that, but because, sellers might not even be able to tell what grade it truly is. But at least it's more honest in the fact that it makes more sense, because origin doesn't make any sense. So yes, people might still fraud us or not be able to give us an honest answer, but we as consumers will be able to feel the hair and test the hair and understand more if it meets that quality they claim it meets, as opposed to, I could never prove if something was from China or Europe or India, for example. So I know it's not perfect solution, but I think it's a step in the right direction. But at the same time, arguably, maybe there should be no grading. Maybe the hair should just be described. It feels like this. It looks like this. It behaves like this when it's washed, and let people make up their own mind. Not good for business, I understand. Not easily marketable. So for sure, sellers probably wouldn't be on board with this.
No, absolutely not. And on that note, something I was just thinking right now that I don't know if you had any findings on that, but is why is hair so expensive? And is there a way that we can bring the price down?
I don't understand why it's so expensive when we know the people giving the hair aren't getting paid very much.
Not getting any money. Exactly.
I think part of it could be that it passes through so many hands. It's not just like the person with the hair, the man that collects the hair, the factory that makes it in the cellar. I feel like there's some other steps in between that. And even if there wasn't, that's still 4 hands it's passing through. So obviously each time the price goes up. But I don't have a business head or enough information to say that. I think at the end of the day, we need hair because as women with hair loss, it's such a big market that they can charge whatever they want.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, that's something that fascinates me. And, one of the things that I'm really fighting here in the States, at least, is the price, because it's ridiculous. And the fact that it's not covered by insurance blows my mind. So I'm always trying to think, and, the more people that I talk to, government officials, people that are advocating for this, they say, okay, well, even if it's where to be covered by insurance, is going to take many, many, many years for the price to go down. Like,
Yeah.
it will have an effect on it if it ends up being covered by insurance, but they say that the price is not going to be affected. It's going to take years for it to
Yeah.
and just like,
Yeah, it's hard. It's so unaffordable for so many people. Like, I feel really blessed that I'm in a financial position that I can buy several hair pieces. And my heart breaks for those that can't, because it's a good solution. And, synthetic, yes, is an option, but ultimately it doesn't look as good as natural, I should say.
it doesn't look as good. And the other thing that we talked about for those that were not part of our last summit is the environmental impact of
Yep.
synthetics. Do you want to speak a little
Yes.
bit on that?
Yeah, so I haven't learnt a lot more since then, but there was a great article that I read. Cannot remember the author's name right now, but there's a post about it on my Instagram, and if anyone wants to read it, DM me and I'll send you the link. About, where does synthetic hair go? And it basically confirmed my suspicions that, yes, it's a problem, because synthetic pieces only last a couple of months, 3 or 4 months. So you're constantly upgrading, it's constantly going in the waste. It's plastic, so it doesn't break down. And I think we talked last time, or I made a comment that, I assumed human hair would break down, and it does, but apparently it takes a long time. But at least, I guess that's better than never breaking down at all. But there are some technologies they're working on, creating more environmentally friendly synthetics, but who knows if that will happen in our lifetime. So people just need to be more conscious of how many synthetic pieces they're going through and what they're doing with them. And a couple of suggestions that people made when I put that post out there was that they often donate them to local theatres. They put them in dress-up boxes for their kids. I guess whatever second, third, fourth life you can give your synthetic wigs is a positive, to extend their use for as long as possible. But also just having, like I now have for my human hair pieces, such a greater appreciation for the person that, or the people that have been involved in making this piece and making sacrifices for me to have it. It's sort of the same with synthetics, like just realizing that this is a plastic item that will have an impact on the environment and cherishing it a little bit more. But yeah, there's not a lot we're empowered to do with that at the moment, unfortunately.
Right. Do you have any ideas, and maybe you don't, and that's totally fine, of like how can we contribute to, like you said, all the people that are behind the scenes? Is there any, because I feel like they're completely out of reach. Like, I would love to help, but I don't even know where they are, who they are.
I think, it's actually important to give them a voice if we can. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm interviewing more people in the industry now. Awesome. I want to be able to give everyone involved a platform. I mean, who knows? Maybe if I did reach someone in, some regional town in China that I'd never heard of, who was giving their hair and they amazingly spoke English, or had a translator, they might just be like, get fucked out of my life. Like, I'm happy doing what I'm doing. Leave me alone. Like, we can't assume that these people even care. Like, they're probably just making their few bucks from their comb waste and they're happy to be left alone. So I don't want to make out like these people are silenced and we need to come in and make sure they have a for people who want to share their story and want to be heard, I think if we have a platform, we can kind of help boost that if possible.
Right. Yeah, and speaking about that, and using your platform and using your voice, I want to congratulate you again for reaching 20,000 humans, because that's the way I see it. I think it's amazing. And you did a post when you reached 20,000 followers on Instagram that it said, of course, it's about the numbers. And that really hit home for me, because I feel that a lot of people don't get that, right? That it is a number, but what that number represents is all the people that have heard your message, right? And your message to me, it's like right now has become my purpose and is changing lives. So to me, that 20,000, it's not, 20,000, people looking at pictures. It's 20,000 people that know that we get to live a full life with hair loss, that we deserve as much as any other woman that has full hair, that, all the things that you speak about, like that to me, it's amazing. And I applaud you for that and for using your voice to deliver that message. So, well, like, how do you feel about this accomplishment? Like, how do you, like, what does it mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, well, definitely when I started my Instagram account, it wasn't even hair related. And then when I started wearing hair, it was just for me. And I wanted to give back a little because so many people had helped me discover toppers and in my journey and make me feel better about having hair loss. But yeah, quickly it became apparent to me that of course I want more followers and of course I want my account to grow because I want hair loss to be normalized. I want everyone to know that I am confident wearing hair and hair loss isn't the end of the world or doesn't have to be. And there's solutions out there that aren't scams and like busting the lid on the stigma and the scams out there. And it was funny because I've had a couple of people like criticize, and I'd see it happen to other people's platforms as well, that, oh, you only care about growing followers. It's like pretty much like, because there's more people I gain, the more people that hear my story. Like, yeah, you nailed it. And I never really understood why that was some kind of insult. I'm like, I put so much of my time and energy into this content. I don't want it to be for 100 people to see it. Like, that's not going to have a massive impact. I mean, I guess it's better than nothing. So yeah, of course I want my account to grow. And this isn't my job. I don't get paid to do this. I have a job that pays me. I work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. I'm very happy in that job. And I'm so glad that and this have kind of collided for me, because my interest in sex and relationships and journalism and research and meeting new people and talking to people and hearing their stories, all of those things have really crossed over for me and my content. But also I love doing it. I'm not a slave to my Instagram, even though I'm on it 24/7. Because people always like, oh, you always reply to your DMs. Oh, you're always so fast. I'm like, I'm always on my phone. I have no life. It's fine. Like, I love it. So it's not like a sacrifice for me. So it's mutually beneficial for my followers and for me.
Yeah. So what has been like the most rewarding thing for you?
The most rewarding thing is definitely when someone tells you they just got their first hairpiece and they're like, holy shit, I can't believe I didn't do this sooner. Like, I'm so glad I learned about toppers through you, or I'm so glad like you gave me the confidence to buy something. I know hair wearing is not the solution for everyone, but just because I can relate to that feeling, it kind of warms my heart when people, and then like you see, they start taking selfies, or they'll send me a bunch of selfies. They're like, I'm just really feeling myself. Like, I really want to show you. I haven't taken a selfie in 5 years or 10 years because of my hair loss. And I'm like, yeah, take those selfies. Like, you look fucking good. That's really nice for me.
Yeah. So what do you think, like, what do you see the future of hair? Like, now that you're doing all this research, like, do you see things changing? Do you think, I don't know, like, what are your thoughts of the future of the industry, I guess?
Yeah, I would love to see things change for the better. I would like to see more transparency around where it's sourced, where it's from, if we decide that even matters. More honesty around what quality of hairpiece you're actually getting. And not people, like, I know we talk about things being too expensive and a lot of people can't afford that. So I never want people to pay more than they can afford or in their budget. Like, that's something that's really important to me too. But also, if you can afford to pay more, don't always just go for the cheap piece, because if we can improve the industry, then something is probably going to cost more if they go to the effort of sourcing it ethically. Like, that's going to be funny. So maybe we need to be prepared for that. But yeah, I think like for consumers, if they could just ask more questions, it's like really simple. Ask more questions. That's a really good start. And hopefully sellers will get on board. I've spoken to several sellers, and there are those that would like to see the industry improved. Some feel powerless to do so. But if we ask more questions of them and they ask more questions of their suppliers and so on, maybe there could be a change.
Yeah, that's what we need to do. I wanted to ask you before we leave, because I think you have bought pieces from, other people, right? Like secondhand.
No, I've never bought secondhand, actually.
You never have, but you've sold your pieces.
Yes.
Because I also feel that might be another thing that we can do.
Yes, and I'm loving this Instagram account, Trading Tresses, and I see it do so well. Like so many people list there. I think buying secondhand is an amazing idea. You can get more bang for your buck. It gives the hair a second life. So many people sell on their hair pieces before they're really at the end of their life. They might just be sick of it or they've upgraded. So yeah, I think the secondhand market is something that I would love to see grow even more. Well, whenever I sell a piece, that money goes back into buying new hair. Like I always say to Tribe, I'm like, okay, I just sold for $500. That's not our money. That's my wig money. And like I mentally keep track. So when I buy a new piece, I don't feel bad because I mean, obviously you probably spend a little bit more, but really we don't have to like dip into our pockets too often if I just keep that cycle going. So it's also a good tip for when you want to upgrade your hair.
Well, any other tips or pieces of advice that you have for, somebody that, is maybe at the beginning, doesn't know what to do, doesn't know if they want to buy the hair or not buy the hair? Any advice?
My advice is get on social media, follow as many hair loss women as you can. Literally the pictures that you like of the hair they're wearing, ask them where it's from. I think that's a really good starting point. Then explore that brand, compare to other brands, do your basic research on just things like silk tops versus lace tops so you kind of get a feel for the different ones. There's always going to be a level of trial and error. Maybe a secondhand piece is the perfect first purchase for you as long as it's secure. If not, go to a brand that has a really good returns policy so you don't lose too much money if it isn't the right piece for you. But yeah, if you're nervous about it being like weird wearing wigs or uncomfortable or toppers, whatever it is you wear, like you get over that so fast. The second you find a good hair piece and you feel that you look amazing, all of that concern about the stigma just goes away because you look amazing. That's all that matters. And feel good.
Right. And it lifts your spirit, and the way, the moment you start feeling good is going to show. That's what I tell everybody. Like exactly. The wig can be marvelous, but if you feel like shit, you're not going to look good.
That's
so
right.
It's all about how you feel, really. So like work on yourself and it's going to show, I promise.
Yeah, that's right. The wig, I say this all the time, that the wig will not do the emotional work for you. It's a boost that you might need, but you still have to work on yourself and realize that it doesn't matter what other people think, it only matters what you think, and all of that, wellness work internally, which I normally scoff at, but there are some things you have to change your thinking around, and only you can do that.
Have you done any work, Kelly? I don't think I've ever asked you that. Or like, what do you do to deal with your emotional side of things?
But definitely at the beginning when I was researching toppers, I was like, oh my God, I cannot believe I'm going to take this step. Like, this is basically a wig. Like, oh my God. Like, I just had so much judgment, and God knows where that came from. I mean, society, but I feel horrible when I think of that person now that I was like, thought I'd be weird for wearing that. And I really just had to realize that it was an accessory like anything else, and that I cared, I guess, more about feeling good about myself than what other people would think. Like, I'm the same with a lot of things. Like, I dress for myself. I don't dress for anyone else. Like, everything I do, if I feel good, then it's almost like no one can hurt me. But yeah, I think on my Instagram called the 3 steps, which I kind of talk about how I got to that place. So it's doing your research. It's not making a big deal about it. It goes into it in more detail, but it's the best I've been able to do to kind of articulate the inner work I've done, because it is hard to explain, I think, what goes on in your brain.
Wait, but okay, so for people that, let's just touch on it really quick. So first is do your research, and then?
Yeah, it's do your research, accept that this hair loss isn't going away. Like, you're going to have to do something about it if you want to feel better, but also deciding to do nothing about it is still a decision, but you have to make some kind of decision. Then it's about not making it a big deal. So it's following all the hair loss babes, when talking about our conversations, just dropping in there that you wear hair, like, just, I guess I call it no biggie. I think that's step 2. I think I could be getting the steps mixed up. Oh, that's right. It's acceptance, take control. So that's where you make a decision and you've done all your research, and then no biggie it is, coming to terms with it. So clearly I don't preach this advice very often, but it's all on the gram. If you want to go read it properly, when I was in sound mind when I wrote it.
Yeah, it's all on the gram, and Kellie has amazing content. So if you're not following her already, make sure to go to @hairlossboss, because it's really, really good. And what I love about your account is that it's not only about hair, right? Like, if you guys, well, now you know that Kellie's also a journalist, and she writes about sex and relationships. So it's a very, very juicy account, because you can find all the things.
Literally.
Yeah, like literally. Well, thank you so much, really, for being here time and time again and sharing your knowledge. And like, I thank you 100 times for using your voice, but really, I just love that you are using your voice, and because it takes a lot to do that. You know what I mean? Like, not a lot of people do that, and you're feeling called to do it, and you're taking that, that role, and I think it's amazing. So
thank you. I love what you're doing. Your summits are always amazing. You get the best talent on with all different perspectives. I'm so glad you're here to kind of formalize what we're doing, I guess, every day on the gram. You're taking it that next step and reaching new people, and good on you.
Yeah, and like, honestly, it's like my favorite now. I think this is gonna be my last for the year, but I just love what has been created in 2020. The 2020 has been our year. The year of the alopecia, the least of the hairless babes. It's been our year. I've never seen what has transpired this year ever. All the videos for the challenges on TikTok, like, and it's social media for a good purpose. Yes. You know what I mean? I love
100%. 2020's been fucked, except for the hair loss babes.
Yep.